Slaughterhouse-Five. Critical Insights by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. The trauma of war. Billy Pilgrim, 46, sat in his empty house, staring out the window at the gray autumn sky. His housekeeper had the day off, and the silence was oppressive. His daughter Barbara, 21, sat beside him, holding his hand, her brow furrowed with concern. "Dad, can you tell me what's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft and gentle. Billy's gaze drifted back to the present, his eyes unfocused. "What's wrong, sweetie? Everything's wrong. The war, the bombing, the killing, it's all just so wrong." His voice cracked, and he swallowed hard. Barbara squeezed his hand. "You're safe now, Dad. You're home." But Billy's thoughts were already 1,000 miles away, reliving the horrors of World War II. As he sat there, his eyes glazed over, his face pale, and his lips compressed into a thin line. His breathing was shallow, and his shoulders slumped forward as if the weight of his memories was crushing him. Barbara's grip on his hand tightened, but he didn't seem to notice. Suddenly, Billy's mind snapped back to the present, and he looked at Barbara with a mixture of sadness and confusion. Home. What's home? I've been to so many places, seen so many things. I don't know what home is anymore. His voice was laced with desperation, and Barbara's eyes filled with tears. The sound of the clock ticking in the hallway seemed to grow louder, and the silence between them became more oppressive. Barbara tried to speak, but her words were stuck in her throat. She could only hold his hand, waiting for him to come back to her. But Billy was lost in his own world, trapped in the trauma of war. The memories flooded his mind, and he felt like he was drowning in them. He saw the bombed-out streets of Dresden, the meat locker where he had miraculously survived, and the faces of his comrades forever etched in his mind. Barbara's hand felt warm and comforting in his, but even that wasn't enough to bring him back. He was stuck in the past, reliving the horrors that had defined his life. The room was still, the only sound being the relentless ticking of the clock, marking the passage of time that seemed to stand still for Billy. Barbara, with her critical nature subdued by her father's evident distress, watched him with a mixture of pity and frustration. She wanted to shake him out of his stupor, to argue with him about his fanciful tales of alien abductions, but she knew it would only push him further away. In a sudden burst of emotion, Barbara blurted out, "Dad, you need to stop this. You're not on Tralfamador. You're here with me." Her voice was sharp, more accusatory than she intended. Billy's head jerked up, his eyes locking with hers. For a moment, there was a spark of the old Billy, the one who fought in wars and managed businesses. "I know where I am, Barbara," he said quietly, his voice steady but distant. "But sometimes, I wish I wasn't." The confession hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Barbara's heart clenched at his words, and she realized the depth of his pain. She reached out, not just with her hand, but with her words. "Dad, talk to me. Really talk to me. What do you see when you're lost in these memories?" Billy's eyes, once dull, now shimmered with unshed tears. "I see fire, destruction, death. I see a young man who thought he was invincible, now broken by the reality of war. I see a world that makes no sense." Barbara, moved by his vulnerability, leaned in closer. "Let's make sense of it together, Dad. Let's find a way to heal." As they sat there, the barrier between them began to crumble. For the first time in a long time, Billy didn't feel alone with his trauma. And Barbara, she felt the weight of her responsibilities lighten as she finally connected with her father, not as a caretaker but as a daughter. Together, they began the slow process of healing, of finding a way. Captivity and loss. Captivity and loss. Billy Pilgrim found himself in a small, dimly lit room, the walls echoing with the distant sounds of war. His hands were bound, and across from him sat a German officer, scrutinizing him with a mix of curiosity and disdain. "You are an American soldier, yes?" the officer asked, his English tinged with a heavy accent. Billy nodded, his mind racing. He thought of the Bible his mother had given him, the photos of his family that he always carried in his pocket, now all gone, confiscated by the Germans. Where are my things, my photos, my Bible? Billy's voice was barely above a whisper, but the desperation was palpable. The officer shrugged. Such things are of no consequence here. You must understand, war changes the rules of what is important. Billy's heart sank as he realized the gravity of his situation. He was alone, stripped of his possessions, his connection to home and time itself seemed to unravel. In the corner of the room, another prisoner, an old man with a weathered face, spoke up. Son, in here we lose more than just trinkets and tokens. We lose parts of ourselves. Billy turned to the old man, his eyes searching for some semblance of understanding. But those photos, they reminded me of who I am, of where I come from. The old man nodded. I know, boy, but sometimes we have to find new anchors. Look around you. We're all in the same boat. We've all lost something. With each passing day, the steady rhythm of time that Billy once knew dissolved into a chaotic symphony of moments. The loss of his personal items was more than just a physical deprivation. It was a symbolic stripping away of his identity. He began to feel disconnected, not just from his past, but from the very fabric of reality. As the war raged on outside, Billy's internal war with reality intensified. He clung to the memories of his lost items, but slowly he began to accept his new existence. The old man's words rang true. He had to find new anchors, new ways to define himself amidst the chaos of captivity and loss. Billy's mind often wandered to the Tralfamadorians, the aliens he claimed to have encountered. They saw time differently, all moments existing at once. This concept resonated with Billy, offering a form of mental escape from the linear constraints of time, suggesting a way to cope with his fragmented reality. It was a notion that provided solace, as he imagined himself unstuck from the sequential march of events, free to experience life's moments without the burden of their order. The prison camp was a world of shadows and whispers, where the clank of chains and the murmur of despair filled the air. The stench of sweat and fear hung heavy, mingling with the dampness of the stone walls. Billy felt as though he were trapped in a nightmare, where time itself had become his captor. Days bled into nights, and Billy's sense of self began to fray at the edges. He found himself retreating further into his mind, seeking refuge in memories of his family and the life he once knew. He replayed scenes from his childhood, his wedding day, and the birth of his children, using them as lifeboats to stay afloat in the turbulent sea of his captivity. In those quiet moments, Billy also thought about the Tralfamadorians and their unconventional view of time. Their concept of time travel intrigued him, offering a glimpse into a world where the constraints of linear time did not exist. He wondered if, like them, he could learn to view his life as a series of moments, each existing independently, unbound by the chains of past and future. As the weeks dragged on, Billy's understanding of time continued to evolve. He experienced moments of temporal dislocation, finding himself suddenly transported to different periods of his life. One moment he would be back on the battlefield, the next he would be in his childhood home, witnessing scenes from his youth. These episodes left him disoriented, but also offered a strange sense of freedom. It was during one of these episodes that Billy had a profound realization. He understood that the Tralfamadorians' perception of time was not just a coping mechanism, but a reflection of a deeper truth. Time, he realized, was not the rigid, linear construct he once believed it to be. It was fluid, malleable, and subjective. Each moment existed independently, and it was only our minds that connected them, creating the illusion of a continuous narrative. This new understanding brought with it a sense of peace. Billy realized that even in captivity he could still exercise control over his mind, over his perception of time. He could choose to view his experiences as disjointed moments, each containing its own significance, rather than being bound by the chronological order imposed by society. In the end, Billy emerged from his captivity with a transformed sense of self and a unique perspective on time. The loss of his possessions and the harsh realities of war had stripped him down to his essence. But in that barren place, he found a new anchor, a deeper understanding of the nature of time and existence. Alien encounters. Billy Pilgrim stood in the forest's embrace, the silence a stark contrast to the cacophony of war. His uniform, a reminder of the conflict, draped over him, its weight symbolic of the deeper change within. Soldiers nearby whispered, their words a blend of concern and disdain. Yet Billy's attention was captivated by a different reality, one where he danced with time itself. As he stood there, the Tralfamadorians materialized before him. "Hello, Billy Pilgrim," they chimed, their voices harmonizing with the forest's quietude. Billy, momentarily startled, questioned the reality of his experience. "No, Billy," they assured, "we exist beyond the confines of your linear time." Paul Lazaro and Roland Weary, Billy's comrades, happened upon this surreal tableau. Confusion etched on their faces as they observed Billy seemingly talking to the void. "Who's got your ear, Pilgrim?" Lazaro jeered, clutching a jagged piece of metal. Billy, unfazed, responded. The Tralfamadorians, gesturing to where they stood, invisible to all but him. Weary's laughter broke the stillness, his disbelief clear. "Gone off the deep end, haven't you, Pilgrim?" But Billy remained serene, his eyes locked on his otherworldly audience. "They're showing me the tapestry of time," he shared, "where every moment exists simultaneously." The concept was difficult for Billy to grasp, but the Tralfamadorian's words echoed in his mind. There is no free will. The universe is structured, unchangeable, and predetermined. Billy's understanding of time began to shift like the forest shadows in the fading light. He saw his life as a series of moments, each one existing in tandem, yet his human mind struggled to comprehend the totality of this concept. The Tralfamadorians watched him, their kind eyes filled with a deep understanding. As Billy stood there, the forest's silence began to dissipate, replaced by the whispers of time. He closed his eyes, and the moments of his life unfolded before him like a celestial map. Among those stars, he saw his own death, no longer a source of fear, but a natural part of the universe's grand design. The Tralfamadorian's words still resonated within him. "You are learning, Billy Pilgrim. Now you must teach others." Billy's mission became clear: to share this newfound understanding with a world that might not be ready to listen. But he was determined to try, to help humanity see the futility of war and the beauty of living in the present moment. With a sense of purpose, Billy opened his eyes, ready to embark on his journey to spread the truth about time. A detached view of life. Billy Pilgrim's time as a prisoner of war in Dresden marked a significant shift in his perspective on life and death. As Billy marched through the streets of Dresden with his fellow prisoners, he felt a sense of despair and resignation. He saw himself and the other prisoners as broken and crippled by the war. Despite this, he maintained a sense of observation and curiosity about his surroundings. He noticed the intricate architecture and the garlands, fawns, and monkeys that adorned the city. "Hey, look at those monkeys," Billy remarked to one of his fellow prisoners, trying to distract himself from the weight of their circumstances. Billy witnessed the suffering and degradation of the American prisoners, their health deteriorating and their buckets filled with excrement. As he endured these challenging conditions, his thoughts occasionally echoed the Tralfamadorian philosophy, which had imparted to him a fragmented sense of his own life, blurring the boundaries between past, present, and future. The transition from the streets to labor was marked by the prisoners' arrival at a factory where they were assigned as contract laborers. Here, Billy learned of the impending destruction of the city. He knew that many of the people watching him march by would soon be dead. This knowledge weighed heavily on him, but he felt powerless to change the course of events. During this time, Billy became aware of a threat closer to home. Lazaro, seeking revenge for the death of his friend Roland Weary, had made plans for Billy's demise. Billy learned of this through hushed whispers and veiled threats, understanding that his fate was intertwined with Lazaro's vengeful promise. Despite this knowledge, Billy accepted his fate with a sense of inevitability. I'm going to die, aren't I? Billy thought to himself. But that's just how it goes. We're all going to die someday. As Billy continued his work in Dresden, he felt a sense of detachment from the world around him. The war had taken its toll, and he now viewed life and death as part of the same unchangeable cycle. His experiences as a prisoner had shaped his perspective, leading him to accept the senselessness of war and the inevitability of his own mortality. In the midst of chaos, Billy found solace in the small moments of beauty and humanity that persisted. Like the shared spoonfuls of malt syrup with Edgar Darby, a simple act of kindness in a world torn apart. These moments, though fleeting, offered a glimpse of hope and connection, a reminder that even in the darkest times there can be light. As the days passed, Billy's detachment grew, but so did his appreciation for the present, the here and now, where he could still find meaning and purpose despite the looming shadow of war. The meat locker survival. Dresden was crumbling under a relentless barrage of bombs. Amidst the chaos, Billy Pilgrim and his fellow prisoners found themselves huddled in a meat locker. "Is it over?" whispered one of the guards. "No," replied another. "It's a firestorm out there." Billy, clutching his thin coat, felt a strange sense of detachment. He had seen the future in the past, and now, time seemed to stand still. "Why are we here?" a young soldier asked. "To survive," Billy answered. The guards made occasional forays to the stairs, returning with whispers of the world outside. Billy drifted between moments of his life, the past and the future blurring together. "It's like a book," he mumbled. "You can look at the pages in any order. The story doesn't change." A guard, curious, asked, "What are you talking about?" Billy explained, "Time isn't a line. It's all happening now, every moment always." As dawn approached, the bombing ceased. The men emerged, blinking against the light of a new day. The city was a landscape of ash and ruin. But they were alive. And for Billy, that was just another moment in the endless tapestry of time. "So it goes," he whispered, stepping over the rubble. His journey through time. He remembered moments with Valencia, her laughter and the way she looked at him, full of love and life. Now those memories were tinged with the pain of loss. He thought of the plane crash, the hospital, and the news of Valencia's death that he would receive upon waking. It was all there, laid out before him, yet he could not change any of it. Billy moved through the ruins of Dresden, each step a reminder of the fragility of life and the inexorable march of time. "So it goes," he repeated, a mantra against the chaos of existence. Quest for meaning. Billy sat in the dimly lit living room, surrounded by shelves of books that seemed to whisper secrets of the universe. The soft glow of the lamps cast a gentle light, creating a relaxed and inviting atmosphere. The sound of muffled conversation and light music filled the room, adding to the comforting and pleasant environment. His eyes, however, were not on the books but on a small, worn photograph he held gently between his fingers. It was a picture of him as a young soldier, a reminder of a past that felt both distant and uncomfortably close. "Does it ever bother you, Dad?" asked Barbara, her voice cutting through the silence. "Being unstuck in time, I mean. You've seen so much, experienced so much. You were armed for the first time since basic training, carrying that old cavalry pistol and Luftwaffe ceremonial saber. And then there were the Tralfamadorians who taught you about their concept of time and the importance of focusing on the happy moments." Billy looked up, his expression unreadable. "It's a strange feeling, Barbara. Sometimes I'm a young soldier, walking through the ruins of Dresden. Other times I'm an old man, sitting in this very room. And then there are the moments on Tralfamador, where I saw the universe in a completely different way. It's as if I'm living multiple lives simultaneously." Barbara frowned, trying to grasp the concept. "But where does it carry you, Dad? What's the point of it all?" Billy's gaze drifted back to the photograph. I've come to realize that every moment in time is equally important. The Tralfamadorians taught me that. They believe that we should focus on the good moments. But I think it's more than that. We have to create those good moments ourselves, even in the midst of chaos and destruction. We have to find ways to make sense of the senseless, to find beauty in the ugly. Barbara nodded slowly, a spark of understanding in her eyes. And that's what you're doing? Making good moments even in the face of war and tragedy. Yes, Billy said, placing the photograph down. Like right now with you, this is a good moment. It's a moment of connection, of love, of humanity. And in a universe that can be cruel and indifferent, these moments are all that truly matter. They sat together in silence, the weight of Billy's words hanging in the air. Barbara reached out, squeezing her father's hand, a silent acknowledgement of the good moment they had created together. In the quiet of the living room, with the past and future converging around them, they found a piece of meaning in the simple act of connection. Cyclic nature of existence. Billy sat quietly, the soft hum of the city around him. Montana, close by, tended to their child, her gaze filled with a quiet understanding. "Montana," Billy said, "do you ever think about our place in all this?" She looked up, her eyes meeting his. "I do, now more than ever. It's like we're part of a larger story, isn't it?" Billy's response was a gentle nod. "I've seen things, you know. Things that make me appreciate now more than ever." Montana's laughter was a light sound that danced in the air. "Then let's just live, Billy. Let's live for today and every day after." They shared a look, a silent acknowledgement of their journey together. As they sat, the world continued its dance around them, and in that moment they were simply two souls intertwined in the vast narrative of life. Their child, innocent to the depths of their conversation, reached out with tiny fingers, a gesture towards the future. One day, Billy said, "We'll share our stories, our earthly adventures, and how we found ourselves here." Montana's smile was a beacon of warmth. "And we'll teach that life is about the stories we create, the memories we cherish, and the love we share." As the city's rhythm beat on, Billy, Montana, and their child were a family, a single story among many, forever part of the endless song of reconciliation. Billy Pilgrim, once unstuck in time, has found his peace in the present moment. Seated in a room filled with clocks, each ticking out of sync, Billy's clarity shines through as he converses with his daughter Barbara. He reflects on his extraordinary experiences, his encounter with aliens from Tralfamador, his ability to live moments backward and forward, and his brush with death. Through it all, Billy has gained a profound insight, the importance of cherishing the good moments and learning from the bad. He resolves to share this message with the world, emphasizing that time is not a relentless march towards death, but a gift to be savored in every second. In this moment of reconciliation, Billy finds tranquility, and the ticking clocks become a friendly reminder of the preciousness of time. Barbara, sensing her father's resolve, nodded in agreement, her eyes brimming with pride. Billy stood up, his determination palpable, and began to pace around the room. "I'll write a book," he declared. "A book that will tell the world about the beauty of time, about the importance of living in the moment." Barbara smiled, knowing that her father had finally found his purpose. Together they sat down at the kitchen table, and Billy began to write, the clocks ticking away in the background, each beat a reminder of the preciousness of time. As he wrote, the words flowed effortlessly, a testament to the power of his newfound understanding. The room was filled with a sense of peace, a sense of reconciliation, as Billy Pilgrim finally found his place in the grand tapestry of time.